Hey everybody, Coach Hughes here from the Be Best You podcast. Again, the idea is in order to be the best version of yourself, you can't be a mess. And I'm always looking for, inspiration to keep myself inspired so I can keep moving forward. But I'm also always looking for additional content to reinforce what I've learned and what I know, but more importantly, to continue to learning and continue to grow. And the person that we have on here, Christine Conti. Hello, Christine.
Hello, John. Thank you
Yep.
so much for this amazing opportunity to give a little inspiration and maybe a little, leadership tips and everything going forward to your audience.
Yeah, no, I think it's gonna be perfect. And we'll kind of zero in on one or two things in your expertise, and then obviously if there's anything you want to add as the questions get asked. But you have a book out called Split Second Courage, and it takes a while to get in. I probably should order directly from you. I'm sure you have a copy or a few there. But I did a little bit of background reading on it, and I watched a couple of your videos, and I listened to a couple of your podcasts to kind of, make sure I had a base knowledge. But in this book, you talk about overcoming fears and anxieties. And a lot of the people that I work with are hard workers that because they're hard working and they're good at what they do, they get this opportunity to become a leader. And then they get into the leadership role, whether they're an athlete or they work in a small business, and they flounder because they don't really have any pre-leadership, knowledge. They just have to learn on the job. And what I want to do is, hopefully reach those people before they get in that position, so that when they get in that position, they recognize some of the stuff so they can deal with it a little bit quicker. And, recently with the COVID thing, suicide's going up, depression's going up, anxiety's going up. It's rampant. It's really scary and sad. So I think that it's perfect timing for your book in the sense where it's stories of overcoming your fear and anxiety. So first, I just want to start off with that. If you can share a little bit about the inspiration of your book, and I think it can really help a lot of people today, maybe more than ever.
So the whole idea of split second courage, when you think about, what is split second courage? That's what I want people to ask themselves, because every single one of us has this thing inside of you. And I refer to it as split second courage. And that is your ability to look at a decision in front of you and say to yourself, what is the cost of my hesitation? Now, some people, it takes a split second to make a decision. For others, it can take a lifetime. And what I like people to ask themselves is, when you're faced with, what should I do? To be able to learn to reflect and to think of, what have you been through in life? What are the times that you have encountered something and not acted? How did you feel? When did you act? What were the repercussions of that? And as we get older, especially if you get into a leadership position, if you make a certain decision, can you understand the cost of your hesitation or the cost of your action immediately? And I think way too often, and it happened in my life growing up, which was the inspiration of the book, is that I didn't act and I didn't speak up. And there were many times where I look back and say, I wish I would have, I wonder if I did this, and I think that is universal for all of us. So, my book obviously came from my experiences, but it's not just about me. This isn't a book just for women or young people or old people. There's something in there that everyone can relate to, because for me, I grew up and I played volleyball at a very high level. I played in college. But I loved fitness and movement, and that was a part of who I was, made me feel good. And, as I got older, I was always told, that is just a hobby. That's not something you do. What you do is that you study And then you get your education, then you get your job, your house, your, spouse, your kids, your picket fence with a dog, right? And inside, it took me a really long time to realize that I was living someone else's life, that all of the things I was told in life of what I should do and should like and how I should act was not who I really was. And it took me, actually feeling all the feels is one of the things I talk about in the book. Mm-hmm. That you have to really understand everything you've gone through in life and let it in, no matter how dark and twisty it was. For myself, I've been through some abuse when I was younger. Mm. It wasn't okay to let that affect me or to speak. So I held it in. Many other things in life, you hold it in because you're trying to be this person that society tells you should be, when in actuality, that is who makes you who you, or that is what makes you who you are. That's your character. That is what allows you as a leader to empathize with the people that you are trying to lead, to get in there and say, I have been through this too. And it's funny because you're like, what's your expertise in? I feel like I'm not an expert in anything. I just have a heck of a lot of life experience. And I have talked to a heck of a lot of people all over the world and have been able to learn how they have handled themselves in different situations. Right. So as I got older and I was diagnosed with a pretty severe autoimmune disease at the age of 30, and then lost my father. And then, it was all these things that could have been life changing and crippling. And that is when I said to myself, you know what? Yeah. If I'm not going to be able to walk or use my body, or things are going to go really downhill, you've got two choices. My favorite person in the world, Wonder Woman, she says you have two choices in life: do something or do nothing. Always choose something. Right. And after a lot of, kind of depression and darkness, I started realizing that this was a gift, that all of those bad things that I thought were bad that happened to me in life, they were gifts. And I would not trade my darkest day for anything, because it has allowed me to empathize, to really feel what other people are going through and say, listen, I don't know exactly your situation, but I know how this feels. And it's scary. No matter what it is you're going through, it's frightening. And you may fail and you may disappoint people and on. But it's okay, because this is a learning process. You're going to let in. You're going to put yourself out there. And I mean, I wrote a book and I had to go through my own, oh my gosh, people are going to know things about me and they're going to judge me. And you know what? You're right. And, when you think about what matters in life, you think about you matter, and not everyone is going to like you in life, but not everyone matters. And it's, this idea of using your past to realize, and you said this before we started, that sometimes people say the 5 people around you kind of give you the energy of who you are. Yeah. And so many people complain about social media, right? It's a cesspool and it's complaining. I love my social media because in the last 5 years, people have either unfriended me or, I don't follow people that are negative. If I'm too much for you, great, unfriend me. Because this is what you're going to get. Yeah. And if you don't want to be inspired and uplifted, then you're in the wrong place. Yeah. And that's okay. And that's kind of the point of, when you think about a leader, you're right. You're not going to be everyone's best friend. You're going to use what you've learned and what you see around you and the stories and the people that are uplifting. Those are the people you need to be around. And those are the people that are going to give you the best advice. And you're right. Tough decisions.
Yeah, no, you know what? It's a little firecrackers going off my head. They do that anyhow, being ADD, which is awesome. That's my superpower. But, I went through a divorce years ago, and I remember speaking with a friend of mine, and he told me, he goes, you can't skip the 7 feelings, whatever they were, anger, mad, whatever. And it struck me, and I realized that you'll never get through something if you don't go through all those emotions. So I like how you said that. You have to, you can't skip an emotion, especially when you're dealing with grief or pain. And one of the things that so our leadership week kind of works this way, where they come in on Monday and we do what's called an in-life view, life wheel. Who are you today? And then we usually ask people, are you happy with who you are today? And most people are going to say no, or kind of, but no one's ever really like, yeah, I'm great. I'm right where I want to be. Then we say, where do you want to go? But before you do that, the second step we do actually is we review your habits, your past. And we say that, we always say, you can't live in the past, but your past is who you are today. So you can't ignore it.
Right.
And I heard that in what you said too, which is great. And then by the end of the week, they present a vision board. So who are you today on Monday? How did they get here? And then we work on helping them break those habits and create new habits, so that on Friday, they are, again, a better version of themselves, so that other people want to follow them, not have to. Because if you're a manager, people have to follow you so you don't get fired. If you're a leader, I'll stay late. I'll come in on my days off. I'll block for you, even if when I'm hurt, those kind of things. So I love that. And another thing too, it's really interesting. I'm a girl dad. My daughter's a junior up at Nazareth College, collegiate athlete as well. And I was actually supposed to interview her coach today, but she had to postpone. And there's two books out there that really you just struck a chord. One's called Swagger by a girl named Leslie M. And the other one is Grit, which I think you've heard of before. And I heard you kind of speak to that a little bit, where when you're in that dark place, when you feel like you're the only one dealing with that, whether it be depression, anxiety, avoidance of a problem, say you need to be disciplined with somebody. What is it that you say to yourself to kind of break through that? Again, that's what I see. I kind of hear you kind of saying is that there's this self-talk that you have that you recognize over the years that, I'm in that space. I need to think differently.
I think there's a couple different things that I do talk about in the book, that there's 2 different types of experiences you're going to have. There's going to be that one that's almost like a sharp pain. It's like that, this is something, it's right here, it's right now, I have to deal with it. Then there's going to be something that is long-term, like a depression, like a disease, like someone gets diagnosed with cancer. That's something that can't be a quick fix.
Right.
It's a long-term, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to endure? That's where your grit comes in. And what is that? What does that mean to you? So one of the things that I've learned, there's a couple things, one of which is when you're in that immediate shock, something happens, you're diagnosed with something, you hear someone passes away, it's that initial. I used to watch, this is great. I used to watch Lost, if you remember that show that was on for a long time about this plane
Lost.
crash.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All these people, and I'm not going to give away what it really was about, but the very first episode, and when I was an English teacher for 15 years, I know it's investment banking English teacher, and now, life, awesome. Everything you use going forward. So this initial episode, there was this doctor and there's this woman next to him, and she's sewing up and he's telling her how to stitch him up. And he's like, you can do this. And she's like, I can't. And he said, she's like, why don't you seem so upset? Everyone else is, having these breakdowns. And he said, well, one of the things that I do, and when I was in residence, you're performing these surgeries. And if you make one move that's incorrect, you could leave someone paralyzed. And he said, what I would do is I would count backwards from 10 and I would let it in. Only for those 10 seconds do I let in the pain, let in all the dark feelings, let in the anger, the pain, scream, whatever it is you need to do. Count back from 10. Because I guarantee when you get to 1, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's something that I have used in different situations throughout my life where I don't think that I can handle whatever's in front of me. And as an athlete, there's been times, and I probably have done it so many times at the end of races. I did a 100-mile race last year.
Yeah.
And there were times where I'm like, I can't do this. And I don't say the word can't out loud, but your mind sometimes, this is, and I count and I say, all right, I'm having this moment. I'm going to let it in. This hurts, everything, whatever it is, let it in. Because like you said, if you don't let it in, you can't move past it. And it's just like when you are talking to someone and having a disagreement. If there's something going on, have that conversation, not over text, not over phone. It's a face-to-face, and have it out. How are you feeling? Why do you feel this way? Peel back the onion, because most likely the first 2 questions are not going to get your answer. It's going to be the 5th, the 6th why, and that's where the truth comes out. And to fast forward this, there's a girl I met a few years ago, and she was diagnosed with cancer. And she had to undergo the treatments and the, double mastectomy and all of this. And I said to her, how did you get through this on your darkest days? And she said, well, what I did was I gave cancer Friday. Cancer could have Friday. That's when I made my doctor's appointments. That's when I cried in my car on the way to work. That's when I felt sorry for myself. That's on and on. She said, but then on Saturday, then it was my day again for the rest of the week, because cancer was not going to define who I was. And she said, you had to accept it. You had to keep going through it, but knowing that once you got to that Saturday again, it's my day. And I think that there's so many different techniques that people can use that work in different circumstances. So, for me, I do have a lot of self-talk of, yes, you can. I'm the self-proclaimed, yes, you can girl. Because I truly believe that you can make it work. And guess what? I'm not going to the Olympics. Like, being realistic with your goals, but knowing it's just one foot in front of the other, whatever that may mean to you.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that pop in my head. In the beginning, you talk about, when there are situations, you can either react or respond. And I think everybody knows that, right? You're in that stressful situation. And if I react, it may make the wrong choice, but if I don't do anything, it may get worse. But if I respond, it may take me too long. And now you're caught in this overthinking thing. So the other 2 words I wrote down that came to mind was always being aware of when you're in those situations, and then kind of recognizing maybe the severity of it, right? I mean, if it's something that's not too serious, you can probably react a little more because it may not end as bad, right? But if it's severe, you got to think about some stuff. You don't want to just kind of, again, react if those are the same, and then another thing too, and it's interesting. A lot of the stuff that I'm reading lately, Mindset is another book that I love, is, the optimist and the pessimist. And you get caught in, I actually did a little thing on myself, and I knew this ahead of time. I just didn't want to admit it. And then
Uh-huh.
when I did the assessment, I was like, dang, nabbit, I'm in this pessimist world now where I teach optimism, and I'm teetering. I don't want to be this hypocrite on that, but I want to do that. So I see that's what you're saying here is you got to really think on the positive side of things rather than dwelling in how difficult or the negative, right?
And you know what? There's times where I've been told, you're too positive. You're too, too much. And I said, I would rather be too positive and be a little bit too much than the opposite.
Tigger.
And that's something that you have to be okay with. And some people are not going to gravitate to that. And I remember, there's been points in my life where, people have said to me, I don't think you're ever going to be a great leader because you're too nice to the people that work for you. And I remember, and these are the things that really stick to my head, right? Because you're like, wait, I'm never going to be a great leader because I empathize too much with the people that are working for me, that I value their thoughts, that I take in their information. I should just really delegate and sit up in my, golden tower. I said, that's not who I am. And if that's going to make me never a successful leader, then I don't want to be a leader, because like you said, leaders get in there, they get dirty, they step up. And that is what it's about. If you think it's just sitting in an office and, I do a lot of presenting, and I talk about, when I do all this presenting and people are like, oh, this is so glamorous. I said, 10% of what I do is glamour. 90% is really hard work. You grind, you get your butt in that chair. You're putting yourself out there. You're applying to different things. And guess what? I get into a lot. I get denied from things, but that's what life's about. And one of the jokes when I came out the book and wrote the back cover, one of my editors was like, are you sure those are the words you want to use? And I said, yeah, I do. And it says, go ahead and quit, be an imposter, and embrace your inner loser. Because sometimes when I quit my teaching job that I felt was kind of suffocating me, because I knew there was something else. I just knew it. And if I didn't explore it, I was going to explode. So by quitting teaching, that allowed me to also quit being so tired and yelling at my family and, all of these other things that set me free. So while I'm not saying to quit your job, if you quit certain things in life, what will that bring you? And, the imposter syndrome, people are like, oh, well, I'm not this and I'm not that. Do you have something to share? Then you're not an imposter.
Right.
The same idea with be a loser. If you don't put yourself out there, you're never going to win and you're never going to lose. I mean, there's your cost of your hesitation. It's complacency. And I'll be damned if I'm going to live in purgatory. That's for sure.
Oh, I like that too. My wife was a teacher, left the corporate world, went into teaching because of the corporate world. And she wanted to help kids out. She was down in Absecon and dealing with at-risk students and just, wearing her out and driving an hour back and forth. So she's now working with me for a couple of years, but I also know that she's still trying to find that purpose. So when you're in between something you don't enjoy and you're doing it because you have to, and you are trying to go towards what you want to be able to do, how long did it take you to go from teaching until you found your niche in what you're doing now? Was there a long period of time or a short period of time?
So when I came out of college and was, doing the investment banking that I'm supposed to do and be this big, corporate, everyone told me that it was about money. Money is success. Money's not success to me. Relationships are success to me. I didn't figure that out until, the whole love language book, I do think is kind of important. You ever read that? The
Heard a
language
lot
of
about
love.
that.
I am a like you could make me dinner, you could buy me shoes. Don't do it. I just want time with you.
Ooh, boy.
And I figured out pretty quickly that investment banking, that was not something I wanted to do. You can't sit Christine Conti behind a desk for 12 hours a day and expect miracles. Went into teaching so I could coach. So that's when I went back and got my master's, and that was great. But I loved, movement and fitness and exercise science, that I started, when I was 20 years old and I was still an undergrad. I'd taken exercise science classes. I'd gotten my Group X, my national certification to teach Group X. So when I was in graduate school, I was starting to teach Group X classes and personal train. So, it kind of, my whole life, I've had this, person on my shoulder saying, you love this. This is where you should be. But I started surrounding myself more and more, going to more conferences. I would take all these different certifications because I loved it. That was my hobby. And I knew that being around those types of people were where I wanted to be. So I knew that hanging out every night at a bar was not going to lead me to bigger and better success. And what I think going forward is that I started really talking to people when I went to conferences, when I was working at certain gyms and fitness, facilities, starting to network early. And you never know who you're going to meet. So I've wound up meeting, befriending all these people in the fitness industry. And then a company, made me a master trainer. So they would fly me all over the country and workout videos and really put me in the spotlight. And, and then it took, I would say a good 4 years to establish myself as not working for someone else, but all those little projects, all the ideas I had for like 2 decades, I finally said, enough's enough. If I don't do this, I will regret it for the rest of my life. But it didn't happen overnight. It was the mindset of, I always have huge goals. I don't dream little. I dream here. And what happened, and if people can't see me, my arms are way out. I think really big, and then I work backwards instead of starting small and working out, which is why my manager for my book wanted to wring my neck a lot, because I would have I had this grandiose idea that I wanted to share. And she's like, no, you need to break it down. And I'm like, that's not how I work. So I think that's important when you're talking about leadership and you're talking about making change. Come up with that idea, like the vision board.
Yeah.
Bam. Like, I want to, like, people say, Christine, what do you want to do? I said, well, and they're like, have you heard of Tony Robbins? I'm like, I am Tony Robbins.
All right.
And they're like, oh my gosh, you just said that. I said, yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Yeah.
I'm going to share the stage with him at some point.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, little things there. There's, I was talking to somebody the other day, and guy, Keith Hertling, you probably know him in your passing and stuff, but he's unbelievably knowledge and experience in the fitness world and nutrition and all that kind of stuff. And he works with us. But we were talking about the word yet. Look, I just hit a chord there.
Great word.
All right,
Great word.
I'll come back to that too. But a couple of things and kind of circling it back, started off with anxiety and fear and maybe that holding you back. And I think that the idea of recognizing that you're in that place and not just ignoring it or trying to change it right away, but also too, in being okay with the journey. I wrote down the word passion because I don't know why that's just been, I did some writing today and yesterday, and I just see that word floating in my head a lot lately. And it's because there's a lot of people who just aren't passionate about what they're doing. While you were trying to find out what you wanted to do, you took the courses, you participated in what you learned at that time. And every one of those things were little things that you can add to your tool belt, which then made you more equipped for where you are today. And the reason I want to go through that is because, again, a lot of the young people I meet, 22, 23, 24, they're like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, or this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm like, you guys, you enjoy in the moment, learn in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's your passion, great, but keep building and going towards that passion. Right.
And there's so many things you're going to do that I don't know how many different courses and certifications I've taken that I've learned, yeah, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But you learn that that's not something you love, just like calculus and me. I didn't love that. So that's why I did not go into, certain math courses or careers. And that, I think, when I go speak at, if I speak at high schools, or I'll speak at a career day, and, they bring you in and, what is it that you do? And I've gone in to speak since I've left teaching. And I said, listen, I'm on my third I've made it career. Third. I said, and I'm not 75 years old. I said, but if you would have asked me as a high school student, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I didn't tell you something, that wasn't okay. Yeah. Now I want you to say, here's what I'm interested in, and I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to do internships. And if you think, wow, I could never do this my whole life, don't worry, you don't have to. Right, I have a podcast. Podcasts didn't exist when we were younger.
Yeah.
If you would say that, oh, you have a podcast production company, like what? I don't know what I'm going to be my hands in another 10 years, because maybe it doesn't exist yet.
Right. True. Very true. Yeah, no. Yeah. So the word yet, what I was seeing on it is, I say there's a problem you're having, and, you say, oh, I can't get it done. And then you just throw the word yet at it. Or I also saw it was interesting too, where yet can also become an excuse of not finishing something in a procrastination way, I guess is what I'm saying. So you have the yet is used to say, I have something I want to accomplish. I have something I need to overcome, and I'm not able to do that yet, meaning there's a positive side to it. Mm-hmm. And then the other one that I was hearing was interesting was, I haven't done it yet, and it becomes a deterrent or a reason why you're not going to do something. So I saw your eyes light up there. So preach on the yet. So what do you think? I use that
all the time. There's two things that I think of with. Number one is the word yet, that I said, just stick it on the back of, whatever it is you're talking about. The other thing, when I was a teacher, there used to be, I had this is great. I taught kids that were like 17, 18 years old, but I had a gravestone that I'd put on the wall, and there's words that we would bury. And I'd say, these words you need to bury, like bury them. We'll have a funeral for them. Don't ever use them again. And I know
I'm a gravestone.
Okay. So, and it would say, RIP on there, rest in peace.
Yeah.
And one of the words, some of them are like, this is good. That is good. Like, please don't use good, use something a little bit more elaborate. But one of the words that I made them put up there is hope. I bury the word hope, not in a sense of being hopeful, but in a sense of, I hope this works out. I hope to be a best-selling author. I hope to be a good speaker. No. I will be a best-selling author. I will be a speaker. I will make a difference. There's such, and the whole idea of will, I used to teach Julius Caesar a whole bunch, and he would say, it's in my will. I will not do something. And I think that burned in my head as a, as a lover of diction and words and play on words for so long, that when you talk about your will, I will do this. It's not just like, yes, I'm going to do it. It's in my soul. This is my will. I will this to happen. It's not a hope. There's power in words. Words matter, because what you say to yourself and the universe, you can make that happen. And it's interesting because what you speak, sometimes you have to be careful because it will happen, and you need to be ready for that. And also what you say, if it's negative, that will happen. And you have to be ready for that. So I think there's huge power in what you say.
Yeah.
And when we talk about being a leader, what you say to people matters. And when you ask someone to do something for you and you say, take out your pencil, as opposed to, I need you to take out your pencil. Well, there's a power in need too. People want to be needed. We want to be accepted. And adding these little extra, it's all psychology. Adding
Yeah.
these little extra words does make a difference, and does make, like you said, makes a connection with people that you may not realize.
Yeah. I think, is the word hagiographer, is that what Keith always says? The lover of words or something like that? Or, um, but, so I have a son who has autism, and you talk about how words change a little bit. And when he first got diagnosed, I said to somebody, he said, my son's autistic. And she very politely pulled me aside and said, no, your son is not autistic. Your son is, and his name is JT. I don't know if you remember the JT Foundation. I did some Jersey Shore marathon stuff for a while. But she said, no, your son is JT. He has autism.
Right.
And then the other thing with,
Mm-hmm.
again, I keep hearing, optimism and pessimism, can and can't. And one of the things that we talk about at work is having to and getting to. And people say, I kind of trick them, lead them, say, do you have to go to work? And they say, yeah. Do you have to pay your bills? And they say, yeah. And I just say, no, you don't. And they look at me kind of puzzled. And I say, you get to take the garbage out. You get to go to work. You get to pay the bills. You get to be late on a bill, because my son will never get that opportunity, yet he would love to. And, and I laughed. I don't know if you heard me when I said it earlier, but I have a slide that I put up Eeyore, and I put Dark Cloud over there. And then I have Tigger up there, and then I have SpongeBob in the middle. But you got to have a little Tigger in you, that positive optimism mindset, grit, perspective, awareness, recognition, to, again, train your brain to recognize it in those moments, going back to a split second courage. Because I was reading the title, I was like, split second courage. Does that mean I have to know what I'm at that split second and make a choice at that point? And you don't have to make that choice at that point. Right.
Right. It's knowing and again, it goes back to knowing the cost of your hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it comes down to, whether it be that split second where you're yes, no, or it's a decision that you have to make. It's split second courage that you need. My hope is that people are going to learn that we all have that split second courage that's going to allow us to act and react quicker and not let opportunities pass us by because we're afraid, and being okay to fail, and being okay to, if I were to ask you, how many times in your life can you remember that punched in the stomach feeling, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this just happened, or I'm embarrassed, or I'm disappointed, or I just got fired, or we all have them. Yep. But guess what? I don't see that up on everyone's Instagram reels.
No.
No. And you know what? Also, I love the Eeyore, right? So think about Eeyore. It's like, I lost my tail again. I have no friends, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You know what's important? For you to identify Eeyore. Because if you can't identify the Eeyores in your life, ask yourself if it's you.
There's a lot more. Yeah. When you do bring that out, you definitely see a little bit of that in you as well. But yeah, you got to have that positive thing. So I don't want to keep you too much longer. I want you to share a last thing, but this is a question that I don't think there's not one answer for it, but I would like it to be maybe the first thing that pops in your head, because there's many answers to this, but if in order to be the best you, be best you, what's one thing that you think everybody should do to start that journey? Because you're never going to be the best version at the end. You're always on that journey. So what's that one thing that would come to mind that you would give us on that parting advice?
Parting advice is that you have to, I mean, there's so much, but the biggest idea or the biggest thing that you have to get over is yourself. And many of us, we don't love ourselves. And when I was younger, I didn't love myself. And it took, 4 decades for me to really understand that this is who I am. This is what I've been through. And this is what I've learned. And I love myself for this. And now I have choices. I can use my past and what I've been through to help inspire, to help other people live more quality lives. I can't, give someone more years. I can't take away their cancer. I can't bring back loved ones. But what I can do is show you that yes, you can attitude of, listen, we all have something. And that's what makes us perfect. Yeah. That is what makes us beautiful. And life is not about things. The most important things in life are not things at all. They're people and their relationships. And when I talk about split-second courage, one of the, and I'll read you this first 2 sentences of the foreword. It says, perhaps the biggest misconception we have of courageous people is that we think they're never afraid. We tend to see them as superhumans with extraordinary powers, and we marvel at their ability to take risks and overcome seemingly impossible odds. And what I want to tell you is that we all have split-second courage. And I'd like to think that it exists in all of us. And I challenge all of you to think about your past, to feel it, to let it in, and to acknowledge that that is who you are. And it does not have to define you, but can move you forward.
Well, that was great. That came out very, very easily. So, it wasn't a scripted question there. I can't help but think my daughter, and Chris has 2 daughters. I'm not going to get into that today, but, looking as a leader and teaching leaders, one thing I'm also recognize is, you're dealing with, men, a male point of view and the way we think and the way women think. And I'm learning a lot about that with my daughter and talking to people like yourself as well. But, what you just said there is really good. I definitely am seeing my daughter in that where, you're in college, you're trying to figure out who you want to be. You have to like yourself and love yourself, but you don't have to, that's a journey.
Right.
And you can't.
Yeah. And if you're if you're a woman or a man, and that's why I made it such a point for, the hundreds and hundreds of people I've been able to interview in the last 5 years that, many of the stories in my book are men.
Right.
It's, you've got that perspective of, we think, again, society tells men should be stoic and they shouldn't show their emotions. And they're the strong versions and the providers. And no, you have to feel it too. You have to feel it.
Yeah. Well, all right. So the split-second courage, I'll add that on there. You can get it through Amazon. But is there actually, is there a way to get it quicker? Can you go direct?
So there is, so it's definitely, you can find out more information on my website, which is easy.
Okay.
www.christineconti.com. It can't get much easier than that. And there's always information on Instagram, which is get_Conti, Conti fit is Instagram. And you can find me on Facebook and all the other ones. But Amazon is the best way right now to get the ebook is out there, the paperback, and just released was the hard copy. So that's
nice. All right.
Yes. So that's the DL right now. And then at the end of this year, the audiobook will be coming out. So that's big. That'll be another launch in the future. But if you just Google Split Second Courage on Amazon, it's the only one in existence. So easy to find. Well,
yeah, we'll do that. And, so I really appreciate it. Again, we're from New Jersey and we like to talk, and I could probably talk a lot longer. Maybe we'll have you on for another specific topic or something. I'd love to be able to do that moving forward. So,
anytime.
But I really appreciate it. So Christine Conti, thank you. Hope you got some, if you didn't get a couple good nuggets out of there, then, that's on you. Right. But Coach Hughes for the Be Best You podcast. Again, no one's going to follow a mess. Right. So work on yourself. Until the next episode.